For years, royal status meant free, highly secure access to the world's most exclusive properties. It meant stepping off a private jet and being swept behind the towering, heavily guarded gates of Windsor, Balmoral, or Sandringham without a second thought. But Prince William has just flipped the script on his brother, turning a lifelong family privilege into a strict, out-of-pocket commercial transaction. If Prince Harry wants to stay behind palace gates going forward, he is going to have to pay for it, just like anyone else. This is a monumental shift in how the British monarchy operates behind closed doors. To understand the sheer gravity of this move, we have to look at the mounting pressure that has been building over the last few years regarding royal real estate, taxpayer-funded security, and the very definition of what it means to be a working member of the royal family. The foundation for this quiet, ruthless financial decree has been laid brick by brick, and it starts with the reality of Prince Harry's current standing in the United Kingdom. Remember, this is a man who was already asked to vacate Frogmore Cottage, his last official, supposedly permanent foothold on British soil. Frogmore was a magnificent gift, a luxurious, multi-million-pound renovated estate that allowed him to maintain the illusion of an active royal life, even while criticizing the institution from thousands of miles away in California. When the lease on Frogmore was not renewed, it sent a very clear message. The era of having one foot in and one foot out was officially over. But even after losing Frogmore, there was always an assumption that whenever the Duke of Sussex returned to his homeland, he would naturally be accommodated somewhere within the vast, sprawling royal portfolio. After all, he is still the king's son. The expectation was that an apartment at St. James's Palace, a comfortable suite at Windsor, or a historic cottage on one of the great royal estates would simply be unlocked, dusted off, and fully staffed for his arrival. Parallel to the loss of his permanent home has been Prince Harry's highly publicized, relentless legal crusade against the Home Office over his security arrangements. We have all watched him fight tooth and nail in court for the right to automatic, taxpayer-funded police protection. He argued that his birthright alone makes him an inherent target and therefore entitles him to the highest level of state security whenever he touches down in the UK. He lost that battle, and the courts ruled that he cannot simply demand or even privately pay for armed metropolitan police on his own terms. That devastating legal blow meant that any future visit to the UK required private, highly expensive security logistics. It also meant that staying inside the heavily fortified, existing security bubble of a royal estate became even more crucial for his brand and his wallet. If he could just get inside Windsor Castle's walls, the security problem essentially solves itself. The perimeter is already secured by the state, meaning he would be shielded by the Crown's existing infrastructure at no additional cost to himself. But the institution has been watching this specific calculus very closely, and King Charles has recently set a very interesting, very ruthless precedent when it comes to subsidizing non-working royals. We only need to look at what just happened with Prince Andrew. For years, despite being entirely disgraced and stripped of his public duties, Andrew was still benefiting from a massive, privately funded security detail paid for directly by the king. But Charles recently brought the hammer down, cutting off his brother's private security allowance and making it abundantly clear that the bank of the king is no longer a boundless resource for those who do not actively serve the crown. This move against Andrew was universally praised by the public, but it also established a brand new, unshakable rule. If you are not working for the firm does not pay for your protection or your lifestyle. This precedent is exactly what Prince William has leveraged to finally close the loop on his younger brother. With King Charles facing his own significant health challenges and understandably stepping back from some of the grueling day-to-day administrative burdens of the monarchy, William has stepped into the void. He is no longer just the heir in waiting. He is effectively the chief operating officer of the family business. He has been taking on significantly more executive control over the management of the Crown estate, the Duchy of Cornwall, and the intricate financial audits associated with the sovereign grant. William is looking at the monarchy not just as a family, but as a billion-dollar enterprise that relies entirely on public goodwill and extreme financial discipline. The public perception of the monarchy right now demands a slimmed-down, pragmatic approach. The British public simply will not tolerate any perception of their tax dollars, or even the sovereign's private funds, being used to subsidize the luxurious lifestyles of royals who have voluntarily walked away from their duties to pursue commercial wealth in America. While King Charles might occasionally wrestle with the paternal guilt of alienating his youngest son, William suffers from no such emotional conflict. William is widely understood to be the pragmatic, unsentimental enforcer of this new royal era. He sees the situation with utter clarity. He knows exactly what is at stake regarding the public's trust, and he knows exactly how to protect the institution. And so, rather than engaging in another public screaming match or exchanging bitter, leaked text messages, William has orchestrated a masterful, quiet, quiet, bureaucratic maneuver. He has used his increased administrative power to completely rewrite the rules of royal accommodation, preparing to deploy a strategy that will fundamentally change Prince Harry's relationship with the crown. This strategy does not rely on emotional confrontations or dramatic palace showdowns. Instead, the evidence lies in a newly drafted, heavily scrutinized financial framework quietly making its way through the royal household's administrative channels. With King Charles delegating more of the financial oversight, William has been deeply involved in a comprehensive audit of the crown estate and the sovereign grant. Every expenditure, every grace and favor home, and every logistical cost is being closely examined. Out of this audit emerges what insiders are calling a strict new cost recovery protocol for royal households. This protocol is incredibly specific and ruthlessly efficient. It explicitly prohibits any taxpayer money or duchy funds from being utilized to subsidize the lodging, staffing, and security of non-working royals who reside permanently outside of the United Kingdom. It is a dry, bureaucratic policy on paper, but in practice, it is a laser-guided financial missile aimed directly at Montecito. Here is what this actually means on the ground, and here is the core revelation of William's new reality. We already know that Prince Harry is required to give a strict 28-day notice before any trip to the UK if he wishes to request accommodation on a royal estate. In the past, this was merely a logistical hurdle to ensure rooms were aired out, security was briefed, and staff were available. But the next time the Duke of Sussex submits his 28-day notice to stay at Windsor Castle, Balmoral, or Sandringham, he will not just be granted a guest room with a polite confirmation. Instead, his team will be issued an itemized invoice. Under Prince William's ironclad new protocol, Harry must now prepay a commercial rental rate for the use of any royal property. Think about the astronomical cost of leasing a secure, historic estate in the heart of Windsor, even for just a few nights. But the rent is only the beginning. The invoice will also include a massive, non-negotiable premium to cover the internal private security required while he is on the grounds. Because Harry travels with his own private American security contractors, introducing armed, non-state personnel into the highly secure bubble of the British monarch's residence creates an absolute logistical nightmare. The palace has to deploy its own specialized security staff to monitor and coordinate with Harry's team, ensuring they do not breach restricted areas, compromise the sovereign's safety protocols, or leak sensitive details to the press. The palace is no longer going to absorb the cost of babysitting Harry's entourage. If he wants to bring his private team behind palace walls, he has to foot the bill for the palace's oversight. He is no longer being treated as a beloved prince returning to his childhood home. Administratively, legally, and financially, Prince Harry is being treated as a high-paying, short-term corporate tenant. It is a stunning demotion, stripping away the familial warmth and replacing it with the cold, hard reality of commercial real estate. Publicly, this move is completely and utterly bulletproof. If Harry were to complain about this new policy, who would possibly take his side? Prince William can stand in front of the British public and accurately claim that this entire protocol is simply about modernizing the monarchy. It is about protecting taxpayer resources and adhering strictly to the stringent rules of the sovereign grant, which dictates that public money must not be used for private benefit. In an era of economic hardship for so many citizens across the United Kingdom, the idea of the crown forcing a millionaire celebrity who lives in a California mansion to pay his own way is immensely popular. William looks like a highly responsible steward of the nation's wealth, ensuring that the working royals are prioritized while cutting the absolute fat of the non-working members. Privately, however, this protocol is a brilliant, calculated containment strategy. William is acutely aware of how the Sussex brand functions. He knows that Harry and Meghan rely heavily on the optic of being intimately tied to royal properties to maintain their global brand value. Their massive streaming deals, their explosive interviews, their entire commercial appeal, it all heavily hinges on their perceived proximity to the crown. Stepping out of a blacked-out Range Rover inside the gates of Windsor Castle provides them with an aura of regal authority that money simply cannot buy. Or rather, it used to be something money couldn't buy it. By putting a massive, itemized price tag on that exact optic, William has created a formidable financial boundary. He knows that paying thousands upon thousands of pounds out of pocket just for the privilege of a photo op or a fleeting royal association will quickly drain Harry's private resources. It forces the Duke of Sussex to weigh the return on investment reimbursement for every single trip back to the United Kingdom. William hasn't explicitly banned his brother from the properties, which would have undoubtedly sparked endless, exhausting accusations of cruelty and victimization. Instead, he has done something far more effective and far more difficult to argue against. He has simply priced him out of the royal bubble. The consequences for Harry are immediate, inescapable, and profoundly damaging to the narrative he has carefully constructed over the past 4 years. Every time an Invictus Games anniversary approaches, or a charity patron event calls him back to London, he now faces an agonizing lose-lose scenario. Let us break down exactly what happens the next time his private jet touches down on the tarmac at Heathrow. He has 2 options going forward, and both of them fundamentally shatter his royal illusion. He can quietly swallow his pride, open his checkbook, and pay the Windsor invoice. He can hand over thousands of pounds of his own private wealth just to sleep in a bed that used to be his birthright. But if he does this, he is silently submitting to William's ultimate authority. He is acknowledging that he is no longer a prince returning to the loving embrace of the royal fold, but merely a tourist renting a luxury property that happens to be managed by his brother. The psychological sting of signing that check would be immense, but the public relations disaster would be even worse. It would inevitably leak to the press that the Duke of Sussex was forced to rent his room, permanently destroying the grand illusion that he still holds special, untouchable status within the institution. He would be reduced to a customer of the Crown estate. The alternative, however, is arguably even more devastating for his brand value. He can refuse the invoice out of sheer indignation. He can claim it is an insult, take his business elsewhere, and book a suite at a civilian hotel in central London. But the very moment he steps out of a commercial hotel lobby, the royal magic completely evaporates. He loses the majestic backdrop of ancient stone walls, the sweeping private driveways, and the imposing presence of the King's Guard. He becomes completely severed from the physical proximity of the crown, looking like just another visiting celebrity on a press tour. Furthermore, staying in a civilian hotel reignites his absolute worst nightmare, the security vulnerability. A public hotel, no matter how exclusive or expensive, cannot offer the impenetrable state-level perimeter of a royal estate. He would have to spend an absolute fortune on his own private bodyguards to secure the hallways, sweep the elevators, and monitor the public lobbies. He would end up spending just as much money as William's invoice demands, but without gaining any of the royal prestige or visual association to show for it. This dilemma is exactly why Prince William's strategy is a masterclass in quiet, devastating authority. He has entirely removed the messy, unpredictable emotion from the battlefield. If William had issued a formal, aggressive ban, Harry could have immediately rushed to an American television network, sat down for a primetime interview, and played the victim of a cruel, vindictive brother who locked him out in the cold. He could have weaponized a ban to generate global sympathy and secure lucrative new media contracts. But how do you monetize a mundane administrative invoice? How do you play the victim of a standard corporate billing procedure? Harry cannot go on television and complain that he was asked to pay fair market value for rent and security oversight, because the average working class citizen would have absolutely zero sympathy for a multimillionaire whining about having to pay his own bills. William has successfully checkmated him using spreadsheets, audits, and standard operating procedures. This financial decree also signals a much larger foundational shift in how the monarchy is preparing for the future. We are witnessing the raw, unvarnished reality of what King William's reign will look like. The days of endless royal handouts, looking the other way, and accommodating the demands of non-working family members are decisively over. William is running the firm like a modern, ruthless, highly protective corporation, and the cost recovery protocol is just the first major policy shift of this new era. It is a clear, unmistakable warning to anyone in the family who thinks they can enjoy the immense perks of royalty without putting in the grueling, unglamorous daily work required to serve the British public. So, what happens next? The clock is ticking toward Harry's next inevitable trip to the United Kingdom. When that time comes, what will the Duke of Sussex choose? Will he swallow his pride, open his wallet, and quietly pay the Windsor invoice just to maintain the fleeting optical illusion that he is still part of the inner circle? Or will he refuse the charges, book a commercial hotel room, and finalize his own physical and symbolic exile from the British monarchy? Let me know exactly what you think of Prince William's corporate approach to family discipline in the comments below. Do you think treating Harry like a commercial tenant is the right move, or has the future king taken his pragmatic approach a step too far? Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for the next update on this quiet, escalating financial war.